Where is Kyrgyzstan?
Uh, just below Russia. It's one of those large. Shout out to Elena Baranova. That's all I have to say.
Today we are remembering some gals, going back and doing some historical dives into the most random seasons in WNBA history. Lost on Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, you are Locked On Women's Basketball. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Hunter Cruse. I'm your Saturday host covering the WNBA draft and prospect scouting. I'm joined by my co-hosts M. Adler and Lincoln Shafer. M covers the draft with a focus on player development and the game within the game. Lincoln also contributes to our draft coverage here at the Next and Locked On Women's Basketball. Today we're doing something a little bit different. I have two wheels. On one wheel, it's every single season in WNBA history from 1997 all the way till 2015. On the other wheel, we have every single WNBA team in league history besides the Houston Comets. We're going to talk about some random teams. Houston was extremely successful over that stretch.
This is Rita Williams, Dominic Canty erasure.
Yeah, you just don't want to talk about how good of a coach Van Chancellor was.
You want to talk about how interesting Michelle Snow's developmental arc was? Also, this very much is not something unusual for us. We basically do a version of this for at least 5 minutes every episode.
Also,
But this is
if you consider how probability works, every WNBA season is equally random.
Yeah, that's the point. Actually, no, this is not the most random possible because we did take out, I can't do math, 9 years. So technically, it's actually a subset of the least random seasons.
All right. Let's start with our first spin. The first season, it's not letting me mute the wheel, so if you hear the wheel, I apologize.
Oh, baby.
Yeah, you can tell the hierarchy of dorkdom in this podcast.
2000.
The year
Yay!
2000.
And our team.
Come on, Atlanta.
2000
Come on, Atlanta.
Phoenix
Ooh.
Mercury.
Oh, was Jennifer Gillum still there then?
2000
Let
Phoenix
us
Mercury.
I think she
discover.
was.
Okay, so the 2000 Phoenix Mercury clinched the 4 seed in the Western Conference with a record of 20-12, which would have tied them for first in the Eastern Conference. They appeared in the playoffs, and they were coached and GM'd by Cheryl Miller. Shout out to Cheryl Miller.
Was she good?
Yeah, some people say so. And they got dominated by the Sparks in the playoffs.
Well, that's not humiliating. The Sparks did win back-to-back titles.
Ooh, this is actually a really fun season for us to talk about. Jennifer Gillum was there, but this is the Brandy Reed season.
This is one of 2 Brandy Reed seasons.
Yeah.
One of the most lost players in league history. Absolute freaking star for 2.5 seasons. And then we're not going to talk about what happened afterwards because this is a happy podcast. But if you've never heard of her, there are reasons, but she was absolutely insane and probably deserved to finish top 3 MVP twice.
Also,
19 points.
Hall of Famer Michelle Timms.
Also, Lincoln, player you were mentioning before we started recording, Maria Stepanova.
That's right.
Hunter, you're
2000. I was saying Brandy Reed's numbers. If you want to count 50, 40, 90, only 1.3 attempts per game, but she was 50, 40, 90. 51% from 2 on 12.9 attempts at 23 years old in the year 2000.
She was,
Pretty
I
nuts.
think the number 1 pick in the expansion draft, maybe the number 2 pick. Over a course of 2.5 seasons in Minnesota and Phoenix, she ranked 6th, 4th, and I think in the half season she was on pace to rank 3rd in WAR across the entire league. This team also features a very young Adrian Williams-Strong, who would later go on to start on some of the most pathetic Minnesota Lynx teams you've ever seen.
Fun team.
Yeah. Also, I think Tony Edwards ended up on this Minnesota Lynx team.
Tony Edwards started for this team. Also,
oh no, she started.
4 games of Nebraska legend Nicole Kubik, the first Husker ever drafted in the WNBA, 15th pick in whatever year that was.
You can say they got a cubic foot of. I actually forgot her name.
Yeah.
Of Nicole.
Nicole. Yeah. Spin it again.
Let's go back for a second spin. Sticking with the 2000s, 2003.
Ooh.
Atlanta.
2003, New York Liberty.
This was a firmly mediocre team.
A firmly mediocre New York Liberty team? What is this? Every year in WNBA history between 2001 and 2022?
This is a 16-18 team, finished outside the playoffs. Second to last in the Eastern Conference, only ahead of those Washington Mystics, coached by Richie Adubato. Fun guy. Oh, Elena Baranova. Elena Baranova is on this team. So
Elena Baranova, who was really good for being a stretch 5 in the years of our Lord 2003. Highly underrated in that sense. She was just really, I think she made an all-W team.
Yeah, in 2004, a year after this, she shot 46% from 3 on 3.4 attempts at, how tall was she? Yeah, 6'5". That's nuts.
Yeah, basically, if you're ever doing like old queries of stretch 5s in the W, like you're gonna get Baranova, and if you've never watched,
that's like Steph.
I don't know why you would have watched the early 2000s Liberty as much as I have, but if you have, you're gonna get Donovan, or not Donovan. You're gonna get Baranova, and you're gonna get very confused.
This
Baranova, Steph Dolson
features 3 future WNBA head coaches in the guard room.
And in the post room, playing exactly 2 minutes this season, she would later become a sort of like an injury half-season starter, is current WNBA head of league ops, Bethany Donovan. Yeah. Very short center, relatively short center out of Stanford. Mm-hmm. Also including such incredible journey women as Erin Thorne, who I believe would pop up in Indy later for random reasons. KB Sharp, who definitely would pop up there. Lincoln, what trade was Terry Phillips involved with?
Let me go.
Wasn't she involved with a trade?
Terry Phillips.
Or am I
32 games.
Or am I thinking of the proposed trade for Sue?
She was traded by the Portland Fire to the New York Liberty for Carolyn Jones-Young. It's the only time that Terry Phillips was traded.
Let's pretend that I knew that. I mean, there was that offer from when the Liberty tried to trade, like, I think it was 2 first-round picks and 3 starters.
I think they tried to trade an entire 5-player lineup for.
That's what I was saying.
Pick.
Yeah, they tried to. I think it was 3 stars, and I think when we tried to like back reference who they were, I think Terry Phillips was probably one of them.
Yes. It would have been the year before this. Lynn Dunn is on the record, in multiple different places, including this podcast, saying that the New York Liberty were going to trade an entire starting lineup to try to draft Sue Bird. So shout out to ABL legend Carol Blasowski and Coach Richie Adubato.
Richie Adubato is indeed a New York legend. Also, this team really ended. Just a bunch of these players ended up playing with Tamika Catchings. We got KB Sharp, Erin Thorne, Tamika Whitmore. All of them ended up playing next to her. Mm-hmm. This, so the mediocre Liberty just defeat her team for slightly less mediocre Indiana teams.
Yeah.
2 super interesting spins. After the break, we'll go into some more spins and just, keep it rolling with some random seasons.
This is what we do to earn a paycheck.
You've heard us talk about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, visit live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com to get started. If you didn't know already, Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV's channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. To get back into it, another spin.
Oh, I
We'll
actually
see.
missed another 2001 Stanford legend. Lindsay Yamasaki was on those Liberty teams. Tara Vanderveer, just her entire career, just producing fraudulent wings.
This is also the kind of thing that we would just be doing for fun anyway. Like, I just searched the history of our group chats, and we've brought up Tari Phillips multiple times.
That's terrible.
What do you mean that's terrible? She's a good player. That's insulting.
Not about the player, just about the concept.
I mean,
But let's spin it. Let's
what
spin
else am I
it.
supposed to do in my day-to-day life?
Spinning.
2002.
Need more hobbies.
Ooh.
I think the odds of this wheel are not even between everyone.
I think that's just selection bias.
Yeah.
So what is that? 2002. That's Orlando, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, this is, I think, their last season in Orlando.
I believe so. That is
Coach
correct.
D. Brown. Yeah, this is their last season in Orlando. Ooh.
It's also their
Yeah,
last season before Mike Tebow, and their
Yeah.
first season without Carolyn Peck, who notably left a national championship winning Purdue team to get fired after 2 or 3 seasons in Orlando.
A perfectly 500 team that missed the playoffs due to tiebreakers with Indiana. They had a completely average team. They scored 70.4 points per game, and they allowed 70.5 points per game and finished at 500. D. Brown was the coach.
If you scored 70.4 points a game in the year of our Lord 2024, you would get fired after 3 games.
Yeah. But also, they were 12th in the league in points scored, which is not last because this was when I believe there's 16 teams at this point. Because there's 8 teams in each side. The Orlando
that's how math
Miracle.
works.
Yeah. Shout out to Shannon Johnson.
Yeah, Shannon Johnson, good at hoop, sort of, but apparently not good enough. Same with it's an interesting starting lineup. Like you know the names of like most of these players. Also, speaking of players who would end up on those horrible Minnesota Lynx teams, Adrian Johnson. Oh, come on down. Current Florida State head coach Brooke Wyckoff. Yeah.
Yeah, when you think of the Orlando Miracle, this might be an insane thing to say, but the kind of headline player of the Orlando Miracle to me is Taj McWilliams Franklin. So it kind of sucks.
I think
that
of
we rolled
Nikisha
a season-
Sales.
Yeah, that's fair. Kind of sucks that we rolled a season where Taj McWilliams Franklin only plays 13 games. But shout out to Taj McWilliams Franklin and Nikisha Sales.
Were they
Orlando Miracle legends?
What was their record in games she played that season? Because I didn't remember her missing that much time that year.
That's a good question. We can find that.
They were 7-6. So again, perfectly mediocre.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, so this is the last year before like Tebow gets there. So what that means is you have a lot of players who basically don't perform as well as they do in any other season of their career, except for Wendy Palmer, who just like randomly shoots like super well from 3 and stops committing a lethal amount of turnovers, just like randomly for 1 season and wins Most Improved Player.
Incredible. We have
Wendy Palmer, also the owner in Washington later of a couple of the worst seasons in league history.
who was actually probably there for most of this season, considering that her father was the coach, is Lexi Brown.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, D. Brown, head coach of the Orlando Miracle for 2002, and also the San Antonio Stars in 2004.
Wow, and aside from that one blip of the 2021 Chicago Sky, like the mediocrity of this team would infect Lexi Brown's very soul, and she would never be able to escape from horribly mediocre WNBA teams.
Spin that thing again. Also, we totally forgot to mention Katie Douglas.
No, you forgot to mention Katie
I
Douglas.
forgot to mention Katie Douglas.
I saw her and I was like,
23-year-old Katie Douglas, very good at hoop.
I mean, any age Katie Douglas very good at hoop.
Yeah.
What's her true shooting that year? It's 58 in the year of our Lord 2002 is really good for a wing.
2006, let's go.
2006.
The forgotten era.
The transition era.
2006.
We got a
Tulsa.
WNBA champion. This is the
Or not
2006 Detroit Shock. They won the championship that year.
They did.
They
They were
did.
23-11 in the regular season, and they won a championship.
Like, you want to read us the stats?
Yeah, they were scoring 74 points per game. Shout out to Bill Lambier, head coach and executive of this team. We feature one of our favorite players of all time, Tweety Nolan. My favorite player.
You did promise us that you would bring up Tweety as much as possible.
did,
Also,
absolutely.
you did promise us that we were going to bring up Lynette Pearson.
Yeah, Lynette Pearson, Tweety Nolan, Swin Cash, Cheryl Ford, Katie Smith. This is an absolutely awesome team. They won a title. That's what happened.
Hey, don't forget about Kendra Hall and Corn. Remember, they traded the pick
Ruth
for
Riley.
who to get Kendra Hall and Corn. We talked about this in last summer.
Kara Braxton, Elaine Powell.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
I
Kendra
think
Holland
so.
Corn was traded for Carl Lawson. I think that's what you're talking about, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Carl
They
Lawson
drafted
On
and
draft
traded
night.
Kara Lawson for Kendra Hall and Corn. A trade that, wouldn't you know, it didn't work out in their favor.
Yeah, and then, immediately after this season, they flipped Kendra Hall and Corn again. Traded her to Houston for Isis Tillis and Jennifer Smith.
Go
Future
Duke,
picks.
baby.
Yeah, it was just a whole bunch of 2004 picks that
The
got
good
traded
Isis.
around.
This is, I believe, the second of 4 teams we've done today that included Elaine Powell, who was a starter on their
That's
championship team.
impressive.
I love Elaine Powell.
How many teams did
dude.
she play for? She played for a lot of teams.
Not that many. I think she played for like 3.
So we
Played for Minnesota, Detroit, and
Orlando and Chicago for half
4.
a season.
yeah, that's about what happens in Chicago. You get there half a season, you have to shake hands with Michael Alter, and then you decide to retire and go into accounting.
Well, actually, she was drafted by the Chicago Sky in their expansion draft after hanging out in Detroit for a while, and then immediately went back to Detroit after that.
Good for her, I guess. Yeah, this is the last season Katie Nolan is in Detroit. I think she gets traded the middle of the next season. They win a title without her anyway. No, they won a title before that.
Yes.
let's see if we'll get a 2010 season. Spin it.
Dude, Cheryl Ford was so good.
We do 2012.
2006 WNBA rebounds per game leader, Cheryl Ford, that is.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to put that much disrespect on her name.
2012 San Antonio Stars.
Ooh.
That's a 2012 San Antonio Silver Stars to you.
Silver Stars.
Absolutely. This team went 21-13, had a +5 net rating with a pretty solid offense. One of 4 offenses that's scoring over 80 points per game. They finishes the 3 seed, coached by our friend Dan Hughes.
My friend, your friend by association.
Yeah, friend of the pod, yeah.
Friend of the pod, Dan Hughes, that is fair.
And they also got pounded in the playoffs by the Los Angeles Sparks.
Yeah, this was year infinity of the Sparks basically going out and like free. Well, prior to I think like 2011, the Stars every season were like, okay, let's just retool the entire roster with whatever free agents we can find. They did this with like one year they brought in like Ann Waters and I can't remember. Oh, Ann Waters and like Vicki Johnson. And then the next year they brought in Shamiqua Holtzclaw and Michelle Snow. Somehow it worked in 2009. It did not work in 2010. And then by 2011, they were like, we should just draft some players and see how that goes.
Yeah, and then
that's
they
why
drafted Danielle Adams and Jane Apple.
Yep, that's how you get Danielle Adams. That's how you get Jane Apple Martini. That's how you get D-Rob. That's how you get Gia Perkins.
Wouldn't it be funnier to say Apple Martinelli? But Shanice Johnson.
The most fascinating thing about this roster for
Go
me.
Martinelli's. It's Jewish culture. Sorry, go. Oh, no, he's not going because he's frozen.
Toli Bevilacqua.
What?
He was going to say Toli Bevilacqua.
I was going to say Shanice Johnson, who we were just talking about a couple weeks ago. Drafted in the first round as a possible future star, according to some posters on RabCal.
Shout out to Miami.
Yeah, turns out she wasn't actually that good. At the
Hunter,
WWE
what were you
level.
going to say?
What I was saying is, with this roster, everybody is between like you're either 30 or and older, or you're like 23 on this team.
Yeah, pretty much.
Only one player between 25 and 29, which is like
And
the
that's
usual
Sophia
prime
Young
age.
Malcolm. Good basketball player.
Excellent basketball player. Averages over 16 points for this team. She probably should have gotten more love in her career. She should have gotten more love after.
Maybe not.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, well, unimportant. Shout out to Danielle Robinson, who started every game this season. They started Danielle Robinson and Becky Hammond. Said, we have 2 good point guards. You don't have any.
Yeah, we're gonna run, and then we're just gonna keep running, and good luck.
Yeah.
Is there any more disparate possible post room than like your center rotation being Sophia Young Malcolm, Danielle Adams, and Tangela Smith? It's like, okay, we have an undersized 5 who can do everything your 5 can, but better. We have an extraordinarily undersized post who can only shoot, and we have the tallest player who is the worst defender in league history, but also can shoot.
Tangela Smith was 35.
She was, and she, I can't really redeem her with any of those stats. There's a reason she played in. There's a reason she didn't play that much.
She won a championship in Phoenix a couple years before this.
She did. She was a starter on that team. She had a bunch of threes in the finals.
That's right.
We'll get to our final ad break, and then we'll do some more spins to close out this episode.
This is a highly inspired podcast.
Prize Picks is the most easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks is the best way to get in the action on sports in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Prize Picks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNBA on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to guarantee the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, segment 3. Segment 3, the same as segment 1 and segment 2. Let's get into it.
Party.
Let's spin. We're going back. 2005.
2005. Let's go.
2005, Washington Mystics.
This is a thoroughly mediocre Washington Mystics team.
A thoroughly mediocre Washington Mystics team? What is this? Every Washington Mystics team in league history except for 2019?
They finished 16 and 18 with a -1 net rating.
Speaking of Richie Adubato.
Yeah, speaking of Richie Adubato. Wow. This is a fun collection of names on this team.
This is the most remember some gals team that we've hit so far.
Yeah.
I mean, for God's sakes, the 10th player on this team is Laurie Cohn.
Tamika Johnson, Muriel Page, Atlanta PA, Delisha Milton-Jones, Chastity Melvin, Coco Miller, one of the twins. So a really fun collection of names that we
somehow the worst of the 2 twins is the one that ends up starting in a WNBA final series. That will never make sense to me. Muriel Page, also the owner of some of the worst seasons in league history for Washington. That's just what Washington does for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was Delisha Milton-Jones' brief foray into trying to play for teams other than Los Angeles. She plays for Los Angeles and is awesome. Then she goes to Washington and it's not as easy. She still makes an all-star at one point, I think. And then she goes back to Los Angeles and is like, oh, hey, it's fun playing for the good team again.
Yeah, my number one takeaway from just looking at this roster is they're kind of lacking some post depth here.
I don't know what you're talking about. Nakia Sanford is a immaculate grid legend.
They have only one player over 6'3", and it is Nakia Sanford.
Nobody averaged 0.6 blocks on this team.
Well, stats bear out the truth.
Yeah, but if you add up all their blocks together, consider it that way.
They were 13th in blocks.
I was going to say, you get the 13th. They also, unsurprisingly, given their height, they ranked 3rd in blocked shots in terms of the number of shots of theirs that were blocked.
Chastity Melvin, the leading rebounder, under 6 rebounds per game, and 2.5 of those were offensive.
Speaking of Dan Hughes, Chastity Melvin, Cleveland Rockers legend.
Cleveland Rockers legend. Hunter, can you rig the wheel so that we get a Cleveland Rockers team?
Oh, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say that Margot and Maria Stepanova average more blocks than this entire team.
I'm like scrolling the roster and I'm like, that's a guard. All their good players are guards.
This is basically the version of like, what if you constructed like the Paul Westhead Mercury in terms of like lineup, but like all the players just could not play with each other. Elena Beard in Washington is basically like, what if you just like kind of built around like a weird version of AI? And nope, we're just gonna give her a bunch of combo forwards who can do a bunch of things mediocrely. Shout out to Misha Jackson, LA Tech legend.
We're going back to 2012 again.
Awesome.
What are the odds? Seriously, what are the odds?
1 in 16 to 18, probably.
We're respinning. 2012 Washington.
Oh, yeah, this team went 5 and 29.
Shout out to one of the worst coaches of all time, Trudy Lacey. Trudy, if you're listening to this podcast, sorry.
This is also
you have better things to do with your time.
Crystal Langhorne, that was another one we thought that might come up here.
Oh my God, Lincoln. Do you know the player who played the fewest minutes on this team? It's Dominic Canning.
Yeah.
Do you know the player who played the fewest minutes per game on this team?
That's Natalie Novosel.
I'm just out here winning,
Castro Marquez.
Oh, Izzy and Castro Marquez, who went Izzy insane in the 2010 WNBA finals. She's basically like the dollar store version of Angel McCautry in terms of both regular and postseasons. Highly underrated player, very fun. Speaking of former Seattle Storm, Ashley Robinson, Shannon Bobbitt, Noelle Quinn, soon to be a former Storm.
Jesus.
Sorry, I love her. Please don't fire her.
Shout out to Michelle Snow, very fun player.
I love Michelle Snow for weird player dev reasons, not because she was like a great. I mean, she was a fine center.
Yeah.
Shout out to Métis Ajavon. Also, I believe was she in Atlanta? She was in Atlanta, right? Before this?
Yeah, she played in Atlanta.
She was in Atlanta after this. She was
right.
Final first round pick of the Houston Comets.
Wow. Yeah, she was. I remember her name very specifically because the Atlanta Dream before her had a couple good point guards they let walk, including Lindsey Harding. They were like, we can do better than this. And then they had Métis Ajavon, and everything collapsed. Not entirely from Lachadon's fault, but
probably one of the only Liberian players in the history of the WNBA.
What do you mean probably? Can't you check?
Yeah, I can, but I don't want to.
You know what? That's fair. Don't give away your labor for free.
I'm going to go find it.
Which is why we're doing this podcast, so that we don't give away our labor for free. Speaking of problematic players, Monique Curry. Speaking of Duke, Jasmine Thomas. One of the least problematic players in league history. Also featuring Mercury legend Natasha Lacey. I mean, this team is basically just like, what if you took a bunch of... Okay, never mind. Spin music?
Matty is the only Liberian player in WNBA history, according to the Wikipedia page.
2003.
Ooh.
What is the eye?
What a year.
Detroit.
Another good team, probably.
Another team that won the finals in Detroit.
Yeah.
This was the one they won without Katie Smith. This was the one they won when Swin Cash had not yet torn her ACL and was still one of the 25 best players in league freaking history.
25 and 9, +5 net rating. Bill Lambier is here still. This is very similar to the last Detroit Shock team we've talked about in terms of the core of the team.
Unsurprisingly.
Yeah, because it's 3 years apart and it's a good team, but they're all just younger.
Yeah, so here's Elaine Powell still starting.
Championship winning team with 4 starters at the age of 23 or younger.
which makes it entirely unsurprising that they
absurd.
continued to win later.
Yeah.
Tweety this year, by the way, shoots over 40% on over 3.5 threes per game. Still has a 51 true shooting. Not saying she was bad, just saying she was funny.
What was her low, like her career low in shooting from three?
It wasn't good. It was not
Probably.
good.
Because she had some like crazy like
Pretty
40
low.
and then like 20 something.
Her rookie season was 29% from three, and then she ended up being surprisingly good for someone who couldn't shoot. Goodbye, Hunter, who couldn't shoot in college.
Yeah, this team won a championship with the oldest player being Astu Ndaye Diatta at 29 years old.
And she only played 8 minutes a game.
Yeah.
Effectively, your core is 23-year-old second-year player out of UConn, 23-year-old, I think, second-year player out of Notre Dame, 22-year-old first-year player out of LA Tech, 23-year-old second-year player out of Georgia, or third-year player out of Georgia, 27-year-old expansion draft pick from Minnesota, 28-year-old player who they really shouldn't have traded Kara Lawson for, 26-year-old third-year player out of UConn, and that's your core.
Yeah.
They shot pretty damn
Any
well.
final words?
Go basketball.
That's 2 words.
You didn't say any final
I said any final words.
That's fair. No one listening to this is going to understand, but Dave Brubeck's a legend.
Shout out to Dave Brubeck. One of the great jazz albums of all time.
That's right. Blue Rondo La Turk should be in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
It probably
First
is.
ballot. First ballot.
Where is the Jazz Hall of Fame? I mean, it should be in Harlem. Jazz Hall of Fame. Where is the Jazz Hall of Fame? Is there a Jazz Hall of Fame? There's got to be, right?
Gotta be.
There's got to be a jazz hall of
The
Fame.
National Jazz Hall of Fame. Oh my God! There's so many that it has its own
Is it in Utah?
disintegration. There's one in Alabama, based in Birmingham, and there's one in Oklahoma, based in Tulsa.
There's also one
Sorry.
at the Lincoln Center.
The Lincoln Center is where it should be.
Yeah.
That would make a lot of sense. God, the Lincoln Center.
Nasuhi Ertugim Ertegun.
Hmm.
How many Utah Jazz players are in the Hall of Fame?
How many Utah Jazz players could play a mean solo on the clarinet?
Probably none. Unless Pete Maravich could have been holding back on us.
All right. Thanks for Awesome Basketball. Your first listen every day.
We're so sorry.
Join the team back next week for continued coverage of women's basketball.
Ooh,
W.
Gail
Make your
Goodrich
second.
probably was nasty on the trombone.
Who?
Gail Goodrich. Lakers legend, Jazz legend.
Yes.
Make your second listen Locked On Sports today. The
I know
first
John
ever
Stockton could not carry a swing beat.
Absolutely not.
national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Have a great rest of your weekend, everyone.